How would an indie Souls-like game stand out today in a market that's already saturated with clones of games that follow the Soulsborne formula? Especially now with the release of Elden Ring, these types of games are more popular than ever. But for now, let's take a look at one of the more colorful takes in the genre with a game called Asterigos, Curse of the Stars. It's a game that markets itself as a Greek and Roman inspired Souls-like that blends a very cartoony, almost Pixar-like character design with a very well-known combat of a typical Souls game. So join us here at Gamestudio as we give our first impressions and find out whether this game brings anything new to the genre. Or will it be one of those Souls clones that don't really innovate much from the Souls formula. You play as a girl named Hilda who is in search of her father. This search leads her to the cursed city of Alphys, which was cursed by one of its leaders, hence the name. Shortly after entering the city, she comes across a group of survivors named the Adherents, and they tell her that her father's been captured by a man named Eumenides. Hilda must now work with the Adherents to stop the enemy plot against the city. And that's the gist of the story. Moving on, the gameplay is definitely the game's strong point. Since this game is a Souls-like, you'll have your usual stamina management style combat that similar games of the genre are known for. Really timing your attacks and knowing when to dodge and back out makes a big difference during enemy encounters. And of course, once you have the core mechanics down, you'll be much more capable at taking out enemies and bosses. And what is an action game without its wide array of weapons? You're able to choose from 6 different weapon types that suit your playstyle. Each of them have their own strengths to bring into combat. Do you want to play it safe and keep your guard up? Then sword and shield are the best weapons to use for that. How about high risk and high reward playstyle? Then hook up the spear and parry everything for a really powerful counterattack. You can even play it safe with a staff and bracelets, which allow you to cast magic for a long-ranged option. There are many ways to mix and match your weapon loadout to really match how you really want to play the game. You want to go for a heavy approach with a bit of magic on the side, then go for a hammer and staff. How about full-on defensive? Maybe the sword and shield mixed with the spear for parrying would tickle your fancy. It's really up to the players to choose for themselves which of the weapons they want to focus on. Fans of the genre may be thinking to themselves that, these different weapons and playstyles are expected of most of the games in the genre anyway. So we're not really convinced yet. So, how does Asterigos innovate in the Souls combat formula? With mixed weapon combos! You can equip 2 weapons at a time and each of them is assigned to its own attack button. With this, your moveset changes based on which of the 2 weapons you have equipped, allowing for more experimentation in the gameplay. For example, you can combo from a sword and shield attack straight to a hammer slam, or finish up your spear flurry with a dual slash with your daggers. The way you can really shake up your moveset and test out every combination feels fun and rewarding. After progressing a bit in the game, you can upgrade your weapons once you reach the main hub area. These upgrades will increase your weapon damage and will help you along your journey through the cursed city. Just remember that the materials to upgrade these weapons are limited. So sometimes you gotta be picky on which weapons you want to upgrade before setting off. As for the feel of weapons in combat, the movements may seem slow and sluggish at first, but you'll eventually realize that this is done to discourage players from spamming their way throughout the game, and to reinforce a more deliberate playstyle of waiting for the right moment to strike. Because when you do land a hit during combat, it really has the satisfying feeling of weight and impact. As for enemy design, each area has its own set of enemies, which does make each area feel unique and varied. The slum area has the usual riffraff and bandits, while the marketplace seems to be overrun with cursed creatures. Although the way to beat these enemies may feel repetitive for some players. Sure, there are a wide variety of foes to fight, but most can be easily beaten by doing the usual wait for an opening and striking them. But does that really take away from how fun the combat in this game is? Being able to take on a group of enemies using your skills and weapons just always seems to feel great, and adding that weighty and responsive sensation just makes fighting these enemies a blast to play. And what's a Souls-like game without its bosses? In the short time we played, we fought 3 bosses, each with their own unique attacks to learn and get through. Each of the bosses felt unique and really fun to go against, as it really tests how well you know your weapons combos. A great example of a fun boss fight is a slum area boss. This boss has a variety of moves that really discourage the player from getting greedy. He has a lot of moves that leave big openings for you to get hits in, but then follows up with an AoE flame that surrounds himself, which forces players to back off to avoid getting damage. And if you're the type who likes to parry, you'll be happy to hear that you can even parry the boss attacks. Just remember to dodge the unblockable attacks though. Oh, did we mention that he also shoots homing fireballs? and shoulder charges you with an insane amount of damage. Yeah, that's a lot of moves to watch out for. The checkpoint system, as expected of a Souls-like, is very similar to the bonfire system in Dark Souls. In Asterigos, the checkpoints are called conduits, and resting at one allows Hilda to regain her HP, but of course, has the downside of respawning enemies. No surprise there. However, this game does give you plenty of healing items as you progress through the areas, so resting at conduits didn't really seem all that necessary. As for the level design, we feel that this is the weakest point of the game, unfortunately. As we played through the early levels of the game, there were times where we would get confused on how to progress through the area. Sure, there are markers on the walls and floors that tell you where to go, but sometimes you really have to go look for these markers to really get a sense of which direction you really need to go. Oddly enough, the most confusing area has to be the hub area, as there are multiple exits that lead out to different areas of the city. Since the hub area is quite big, it gets very confusing on which exit to go through in this vast sewer system. The only indication that the area you're supposed to go to is the right one are the guard station beside the door telling you that the door leads to a certain place when you talk to them. As far as main hubs in Souls-like games go, Asterigos unfortunately misses the mark at this point. With all that being said, the game's setting, which is a mix of Greek and Roman cultures, does make for an interesting backdrop to this very compelling take on the Souls-like genre. The way you can combo each of your weapons is innovative enough that it does keep the formula fresh and engaging. Asterigos Curse of the Stars is a game you should try out for yourself, especially if you're a fan of the Souls-like genre and really want to try out something different. It uses the Souls games formula while adding enough of its own spin to really make a unique experience. If all that sounds interesting, why not give this game a try? So what are your thoughts about Asterigos Curse of the Stars? Are there any other Souls-like games you want us to try it out? If so, let us know in the comments below. Once again, this is Game Made Information Station, signing off.